Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
So my name is Larissa Camp. I just wanted to come here today to be able to share with you my journey in hairstyling. So I began initially exploring what the idea of doing hair. I realized that at 13 I had this gift. I was doing everyone's hair in the city, and it was great. I'm obviously from a small town, so it wasn't like thousands upon thousands, but still, it was something that really helped to encourage me and motivate me to let me know that, you know what, this is the path, maybe you should walk on it. In that time, I also was a student that really excelled in a lot of sports, so I played track and basketball, and I always had a lot of things kind of going on for myself, pom-poms, dance, whatever it was, I was always really involved. But one of those things that got me distracted and kind of took me off its course, when I graduated school, I knew that I wanted to do something different. So within that, graduation day, moved away, moved out to a new city, and from there just kind of progressed into different things in my life. I started to get involved in different activities that weren't always legal, participated and took jobs that weren't legal but probably would now be considered trafficking actually. And from there, I realized that at some point I was really getting tired of that. And I wanted something more stable. I wanted something that could bring me a sense of joy, a sense of peace. Well, just so happened, one day I was on my way to a family reunion and a tire in my car had blown out. So with that, I ended up pulling over to the side of the road and I waited for a while. This was probably mid-August, hot outside. No one stopped to help, so I just kind of sit there. My phone was down. I was just exiting this relationship that wasn't any good, but at the same time, now I was dealing with another set of challenges with substance abuse and all these other things. But this one particular gentleman had pulled up behind me, and I was so thankful. All I wanted to do was somebody to help me. He did. He helped me to exchange the tire, and make a long story short there, we exchanged information. Now, I thought about calling and I thought about not calling. I said, well, let me just call him and thank him for helping me to change the tire. At least somebody was so gracious to pull over and help. So this gentleman was so kind, so nice, just, how are you? I just want to make sure you made it to your destination safely, just so caring and, you know, really into me. And I realized something. I realized that out of all my relationships, that is something that I have not had. It was something that I knew that I wanted to maybe kind of explore. So he did eventually ask me if we could meet up at some other point in time. Now, mind you, yes, this is a stranger, but at the time I was younger, I wasn't thinking anything of it. We met up, we had lunch a couple times, and several months down the road, we started to really communicate. And he would eventually ask me the question of serious dating, commitment to move in. And I was really kind of uncertain, but at the same time, I knew that he could provide. I knew there were things that he could offer that would help me also probably to get where I wanted to. After all, I always wanted to go to hair school. So I knew that maybe this was my opportunity. And I moved in, and shortly after, the fight started. But after the fights, he would give me his credit card so I could go shopping, go buy some things, come home, go get my nails done, whatever it was, whatever it took to make me happy. And I did those things. That relationship lasted about 5 months, off and on, fight after fight. I would leave, I would come back. I would leave, I would come back. There would be something he would do to draw me back. Eventually, after this last situation, I remember very clearly, it was a very hot day in August. He had called me one day and asked me to come and help him. And I said, okay. Not sure what's going on, but I will swing by. So come to find out, I knew something was wrong the whole time. Light was off on the porch. Something said don't go, but I went, knocked on the door. He answered the door. He let me in and said, come in, I'm gonna go get dressed. As soon as I did that, I sit and watched television, and I noticed he was taking a little bit of time to get back upstairs. He came back upstairs and he lays down on the couch and starts questioning me, asking me, why don't you move back in with me? Why don't you come home? I'll pay all your bills. Everything is gonna be fine. You don't have to worry about anything. And I'm thinking to myself, yeah, well, you said that before. I know that you paid bills. I know that you've done all these wonderful things, but I really can't do that because the arguments were bad. You would put your hands on me. There were things that happened that I didn't even share with my family because I was embarrassed. But at the same time, I know that they knew that something wasn't right. He decides that that answer that I gave him wasn't a good answer. So he decided that he was going to get off the couch and walk to the closet, get a shotgun, and that's when he pulled out some shells from his pocket. Now at this time, I'm seeing him just look at me with this death gaze, and I'm looking at him just uncertain as to why you're gonna pull these shells out of your pocket, why are you pointing a shotgun at me? This must be crazy, all these threats and attempts that you've already made at my life, this can't be real. But there was something in me that said, you know what, this is real. So that's when I put my hand up in front of the gun, and the gun goes off. Now, the gun went off, it went through a portion of my hand, and I looked to see, and my fingers were crumpled, bleeding, there was smoke everywhere, my ears were ringing, and I was really kind of shocked and stunned to say, oh my God, what did you do? And the next thing I know is I needed to run. I needed to go fast. And as fast as I could, I ran towards the front door. Still have my purse with me. Not sure why, but I have my purse with me. And something said, turn around. And as soon as I turned around, he was standing behind me, reloading the gun a second time. So this time the gun went off again. And the gun shot went through the left side of my arm, through my chest, and through the door. And it turned me towards the door in such a way that I knew still yet that I could run. Now, even in this situation, I still have my mind. I looked, saw my legs were good, and I was just screaming. Now, mind you, the whole time that I'm looking at this gentleman, as he's standing behind me, there's nothing there. It's totally black. So I knew that he was gone. But the freedom for me was being able to escape, to try to get to a house next door, knock on the door, try to get help. Not sure anyone heard me, no matter how loud I banged on the door, no matter all the attempts that I've made, even before, just trying to get away, unsure and uncertain as to why this situation had to boil down to this. Now, during my recovery time, I spent about 10 days in the hospital. And in that recovery time, I really came to a place of peace. It was really strange. It was like a peace that passed all understanding. There was no words for what I was experiencing at the time, but all I knew was that I forgave him. For some odd purpose, I wasn't sure why, but later down the road, I would understand why all of this had to take place. After I got out of the hospital, probably about a year into my recovery, I come to find out that there were many things that I could still do. For one, I could still write because I predominantly right hand, or kind of ambidextrous growing up, but predominantly right hand. One thing that I found out was that I could still braid hair. I could still do hair. And it was such a shock to me. I didn't know whether I should laugh or whether I should cry, run. I didn't know what I should do. But I did speak to my family. I spoke to my grandmother in particular. She was one that said, Larissa, you know what? You need to go on and go to school. You need to go to school because God still gave you this gift, and the gifts he gives, no man can take away. And, you know, it kind of made sense, but I was still afraid. I was still unsure as in what I could do next. But one thing I do know that I did get outside of having the gift of doing hair was I now have the gift of a testimony to share with you all and to share with others and to share with the world. Mainly in part because I took this path of life that I thought I needed someone to rely on. I needed that sense of hope or that sense of security that I would always be taken care of. Now, granted, how I was raised was a totally different thing. I was raised partly in the church, but partly in the world too. So I kind of had, you know, both worlds presented to me. But all I knew was that I wanted this sense of stability. I wanted something that I've never had. I wanted this great relationship. And in my mind, I could already see and determine where this thing was going to go. I knew what type of man, at least I thought I knew what type of man it was supposed to be. But one thing I never did was evaluate what it was that I wanted for myself. So throughout all of this, I see that I was still able to do hair. And with that, I went to school. And it was such a blessing to be able to go to school because that's where I met Bonnie and Jean with Bonika Shears is before you today, which are angels. Because without them, I would not be fully able to live in my purpose, and not just live in my purpose, but be able to understand now more clearly what that purpose is. And that purpose is to continue to share this testimony, to continue to operate in the gifts and abilities that I do have, to not only just be a demonstration, but to present it to you as that, you know what, you're here for a reason, you're here for a purpose to serve. You don't even know like where this path of life is going to take you, but you are on the right track because you don't know who you're here for. You don't know the people that will sit in your chair. And maybe there's someone here that's in the room today that you may be experiencing something in relationships that you're sensing that you're not quite sure, you know what, it may not be exactly like my story, but maybe there's anger there and you're unsure what to do with it. You're unsure who to talk to. You're unsure where to go. There are different signs and factors, and I'm pretty sure that it's all covered in the manuals that you all may have for your education. Now for domestic violence and trafficking, it's still all the same. But I want to be up here today. I want to share my story. I want to encourage you to get help. Never be afraid to speak to others about what's happening. Find someone that you can trust. And if you can't find anyone you can trust, there's 1-800 numbers that you can call, what have you. But as I'm getting to this gift of being able to do hair, like I said, without meeting Bonnie and Jean with Bonika Shears, there's no way that I could operate in my purpose, let alone have a victory story, right? To be able to share with you. And I had to give somewhat the gritty part of it a little bit earlier because a lot of times what I've discovered, and just for myself too, is that sometimes we're unaware. We're unaware of not just other people, but we're unaware of ourselves. We're not sure of the things that truly make us happy, the things that truly bring us peace. And it's within times of meditation and just really listening to those mentors and listening to the people that sometimes God unseemly places in our lives that could be messengers that we tend to brush off. Those are the ones that are leading us on the path that we are to go. The shears that I did have were only for people that had, you know, all the digits, right? So it was a bit of a challenge. It was a bit frustrating. It was a bit discouraging. But as I began to kind of explain what I needed, Bonnie was able to come up with this design for the handle in specific that would allow me to be able to still cut hair or what have you. So they're a little bit similar to what you all may have now. Here we have the twister thumb. This is called the twister shear, I believe. Okay. So what Bonnie had done, her and Jean had come up with this design to where we're using a handband as of now, but it allows me to put the shear on the hand, but still be able to cut as normal. And I can do anything. I can do anything. It's amazing. And you can too. With this shear, it allows me to still be able to do hair, to fulfill my dream of always wanting to be a stylist, even at such a very young age. But like I said, most importantly, to be able to share my story, to expand my reach. And why not start here? Because here, it's in this very setting that someone saw that there was a gift. Someone saw that there was still a possibility. I had a great teacher who believed in me. I have great people that are sitting here that believe in me still, and the partnership has continued to grow. One of those things was I got to a point where I was kind of getting tired of doing hair. I was at this place where I said, you know what, I need a corporate job. I'm so tired of this situation. I just want to make steady money because, you know, in the industry, it does change. It does fluctuate throughout seasons or what have you. And I decided I was going to go get this job, and I did, and I sat behind a desk for a couple years, and I was absolutely miserable. Miserable because I didn't have now the ability to truly, physically lay my hands on people, be able to communicate, be able to build relationships like I was used to doing in the salon. I started to really remember how important that was for me, how important it was to be able to touch lives, to be able to share my story, and not just share my story, but also be able to listen actively to hear what my clients may be going through, or to hear what someone in their family was going through, or coworkers, or what have you. So with that, I was able to reach out to Bonnie because I had prayed and cried all year. And I told her, I said, Bonnie, you know, I think I want my shear sharpened, but I had no intention of going to the salon. I was just gonna do my own hair. The passion became stronger and stronger and stronger until eventually Bonnie said, hey, you know what? I was just thinking about you. Oddly enough, you came up this morning. Just to let you know, a guy that was customizing your shears is no longer with the company, but I think we found someone else. And it was that same week that everything just fell into place. It was like a divine alignment. And with that, I knew it was time to go. Gladly, about a month later, I walked out of that job. I'm back in the salon now. The very salon where this kind of all began, where I started my new beginning. So I guess I want to encourage you all as well is don't despise the day of small beginnings, regardless of how hard it seems, regardless of the difficulties, regardless of the relationships you think that you don't have, or the connections you think you don't have, or maybe you do. Maybe you have all the resources in the world. But never be afraid to take that step to begin to focus in on what it is that you want to do, what you want your career to look like for you, because that's what's going to suffice. And believe it or not, there are people that are waiting on you. One thing that I was looking for is I wanted to do something that had a little fancy design. So anyway, this guy had reached out to Bonnie and let her know that there was a connection named Grace Horn, and she's from England, Sheffield, England. And just so happened that week, the lady was going to be here in Atlanta for a convention. Bonnie was able to make the connections. We sat down with Grace Horn at the Cumberland Mall in Atlanta. She took all the measurements and looked at the previous shear that we had. And currently, as of right now, she is working on a brand new shear for me. So that gives me more encouragement and motivation and inspiration to know that whatever it is that you need, it can be accomplished. It doesn't matter. The innovation is just great. But most importantly, the connections and the relationship building is one of the most important things that I've learned and that I'm gaining and that I desire to continue to do. The guy that shot me had committed suicide. So as I had gotten away, I heard some gunshots in the distance, and police verified later that self-inflicted gunshot wound.